Oh, the Bible, if you open up the Bible, right? Creation. The Bible starts, the very first verse of the Bible is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That is so important. That's what everything hinges on. You're going to see today that this creation that we see every day is very important to God because He created it. I mean, if you went and did something and somebody else took credit for it, wouldn't that make you mad? It wouldn't make you mad. Or if you went and did something and the people knew that you did something, but they gave credit to somebody else for something that you did, that would make you angry. And here's God, the creator of all the heavens and the earth. And you're going to see that this is a very, very, very serious subject. And we should treat it seriously. I'm going to show you today the effects of evolution. Evolution it has on us. The evolution that's being taught. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you some science. Don't expect me to go through all the science in 30 minutes. I can't. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights towards the middle of the end of the sermon about some things that you got to shake your head and say, wow. I mean, there's just no explanation other than wow. There is a God. Sound reason proves that there is a God. And science never contradicts God's word. Never once does science contradict God's word. Matthew chapter 18, verse 6 and 7. This is a very broad subject, what we're going to read here, but I believe that this falls into it. Creation falls into it. It says, "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one who the temptations come. Who the temptations come. Basically, woe to the one that brings the temptations to the children, to the youth, to the adults, mainly to the children is what he's talking about here. Now, sin is a very broad subject. But the adult that goes after the youth and the children that believe in Christ already and tries to draw them away, it is better that a millstone be tied around their neck and they thrown into the deepest ocean. It is better for that person if that would have happened, other than the fact that they drew someone away from the church. Sean, change the slide there. This guy, Jesse Kilgore, I think I'm saying his name right. I'm going to read this. This is true. I've searched and I've actually verified that this is true. Jesse Kilgore was a bright, inquisitive community college student in New York who loved to debate issues. But one day, in the fall of 2008, 22-year-old walked into the woods and killed himself. Jesse had been raised in a devout evangelical Christian home, and his father served as a military chaplain. He enjoyed defending his faith to his friends and acquaintances. However, in the last months of his life, Jesse had been hiding a deep secret from his father. A college professor had recommended that Jesse read atheist book by Richard Dawkins, the book God Delusion, which argues that science refutes belief in God. John G. West, Ph.D. Here's the thing, you're going to hear this over and over today, that these guys that believe in creation have no science. They're just faith. They just have faith. Well, that's true, we have faith. But God tells us, He never tells us to have a blind faith. He says, take a look around. You would be foolish to believe that this stuff came out of a goo thousands or millions of years ago. Take a look around. There has to be a creator. There has to be design. There is design in this. There is a designer. But yet these kids, they go to college, they leave our homes, and they go to school, and they haven't been equipped to defend the faith. They get out there and they hear 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 professors talking about how God doesn't exist, how this stuff evolved, even in high school over here. If you look at the books, it'll say evolution. I haven't looked at the books, but I will if you bring me one. But it'll say evolution theory. And then it goes on to present everything as a fact. Really? You got to read into it. See, when they say this is a theory at the very beginning, and then chapter after chapter, or paragraph after paragraph, presenting the stuff as a fact, starts to mess with your mind. I believed in it because I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Luckily, it didn't contradict. I never dealt with the contradiction because I came out of a Christian home, left home, started studying this stuff. Now I'm like, wow, these guys must be true. And I said, somehow this has to fit with this, but it doesn't look like it fits. This has to fit with Christianity, but this looks like it's true because they only tell you what you want to hear, and a lot of it, honestly, is a lie. And we'll show you that. Is believing in God and the Word of God contrary to sound science? I'm going to ask you that question. See, science has never proven this book wrong. Never. Not once. There's been misinterpretations of the Scripture where we thought that there was some Christians thought that the sun had a different path, whereas the earth, instead of the sun moving, the earth is moving. But what do we say today? We say the sun rises and sets. The sun doesn't actually move. It's the earth that moves. But even today we say the sun rises and sets. But the sun's not moving. The earth is moving. And that's the terminology that was used in the Bible. So here's the thing. Why? Why are scientists so, why is the world so concerned with where we came from? Think of it. They're not too concerned about this, where we came from. If the idea is opposite to this, they are very concerned to inject that into you and your children's life. Where we came from. Because if there's no creator, I'm free to do the evil I want to do. If I can prove to you and to the world and to the kids that there's no creator, then I can do what I want. And if there's no creator, there's no sin. There's no one to sin against. See, if there's no creator, there's no need for Christ. Because you don't need forgiveness of sins, because you don't have sin. You didn't sin against a God. You might have sinned against a tree. Maybe you sinned against Mother Nature. You know? But if there's no need for Christ, and this is what we're seeing today in the colleges, if there's no need for Christ, any religion will do. See, the thing is kids, youth, you guys got to realize that the only way to get your sins forgiven is through Jesus Christ. Not through Muhammad, not through any other religion out there. There is no other religion that has a forgiveness of sins. And if God is holy, you can't be in heaven with God sinful. You can't be sinful in heaven with God, because then heaven would be like hell. Think of it. There can't be sin in heaven for it to be heaven. You have to have forgiveness. You ever read the book 1984? I read the book. I think it's a fantastic book because it shows how government and the news media and different things kind of control the world. George Orwell wrote this in that book. He says, "He who controls the past controls the future." Change the slide, Sean. He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. Think of that. Now, we know God is sovereign, okay? But when it comes to earthly governments and media, news media, and things that are fed to us and our children, he who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. There's a lot of stuff in the history that's not being told to you guys about Christianity. Just the other day it was on the news talking about crusades. You got to understand that the Middle East was Christian. And they were being dominated by the sword, by Islam. And that's what forced the Crusades to go in. Now, did they do everything right? Was there atrocities? Yes, there were atrocities on both sides. But the reason for them to go down there was not to conquer a new land, but to get back to Christian land that was already conquered by Islam. But the true story doesn't come out because we don't control the news. We don't control this, okay? But here in our congregation, here in the churches, we have to educate our people on what really happened. Check this out. California, 2010. Get this. For you kids that are taking SATs pretty soon, California, 2010 says, U.S. Supreme Court denied hearing a case where certain science courses from Christian high schools were considered insufficient preparation for college because they do not adequately teach the theory of evolution. So these kids that are going to school in these Christian schools, if the course doesn't teach evolution to their satisfactory, then it's not a good college. It's not good prep courses for college. See who controls. Controls, okay? Check out this. Cobb County, Georgia. We got a slide on this. Cobb County, Georgia. They put this sticker on a textbook, okay? And what they want to do is say, hey, this evolution stuff is a theory. Look what it says. This textbook contains material on evolution. Evolution is a theory, not a fact, regarding the origin of living things. This material should be approached with an open mind, studied carefully, and critically considered. Who thinks that they had to take these stickers off? Give me a show of hands. They had to pull them off. They had to take the stickers off the book. Why? Here's what the judge said. The sticker communicates to those who endorse evolution that they are political outsiders, while the sticker communicates to the Christian fundamentalists and the creationists who push for a disclaimer that they are political insiders. Wait a minute now. This is blowing my mind. You got a textbook, okay? An entire book they're teaching out of that teaches evolution. And all the Christians ask for, the creationists, is say, put a sticker on the front and say, hey, keep an open mind. Who has the political clout here? They're trying to say the reason why they had to take the stickers off is because the stickers endorse evolution that they are political outsiders. Who's the outsider? Really, this is backwards. Look at this. The judge went on to say this characterization of evolution might be appropriate in other contexts, such as an elective course on theories of origin or religious text. However, the evidence in record and the testimony from witnesses with science backgrounds, including the co-author of one of the textbooks. So they asked the author of the book, what's your opinion? Is this true or fact or fiction? Of course, he said truth, right? Including the co-author of one of the textbooks into which the sticker was placed, and the defendant's own witness, Dr. Sickle, reflect that, now this is it, evolution is more than a theory of origin. In the context of science, to the contrary, evolution is a dominant scientific theory of origin accepted by the majority of scientists. Now, put it this way. Listen to what he's saying. He said in the first verse, he says, evolution is more than a theory of origin. And in the second sentence, he says, evolution is a dominant scientific theory of origin. How can something be more than a theory and a theory at the same time? Does that make sense? Either it's a theory or it's a theory. Or it's a theory or it's not a theory, right? But he's saying it's more than a theory, but yet it's a theory at the same time. Well, I'm going to get to the science, guys. Hang on. I know this is not my typical sermon, but this is important stuff, because when you walk out them doors and you walk into the high school and you walk into the colleges and you walk into the world, you're going to be confronted with a bunch of facts that don't stand up. Okay? So, Romans 1:25 says this: because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator. See how important this is? Rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever, amen. And it later goes on to say they're storing up wrath for the day of wrath, because they don't acknowledge the Creator. Hitler's propaganda man, as far as I can tell, said this, Joseph Goebbels: if you tell a big enough lie and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Is that true? Yeah. Just keep lying about something, keep repeating it, keep repeating it, keep repeating it. Eventually it becomes not necessarily true, but they believe it. And then they're wondering why. Why? Okay, so, Pastor, you tell me all this, now show me some science, right? Well, get this. There's this lady, Mary Schweitzer. In 2006, 2002, I think it was 2002, but this article is from 2006. She's in her lab, and she has some dinosaur bones and fragments, right? So by accident, she puts some chemicals on there. She did that on purpose, but she put some chemicals on there to dissolve the bone, and before she knew it, the bone was gone, but yet there was still something left in the tray. And do you know that she found dinosaur soft tissue and blood vessels in the tray? So she finds this stuff. Now, it took her a long time. If you watch the reports and actually listen to her words, she did not want to call anyone and tell them her results. Why? Why was she afraid to tell her colleagues what she found, if this is truth? Because it went against everything they believed of for the last 300 years. So they find these blood vessels and soft tissue. And here's what the article starts out with. Put it this way. Before we get to the article, these dinosaurs are supposed to be 68 million years old. That's a long time, guys. 68 million to 145 million years old. How in the world can there be soft tissue still in dinosaur bones? And the dinosaur bones they dug up and hung up in a museum, when they've tested those, because they were hanging up and exposed to oxygen, they don't have any soft tissue. Now, if these bones were 6,000 years old, it's possible. But they're according to the scientists, they're 68 million years old. That's crazy. So here's how they start the article. Meanwhile, actually this is like the second paragraph. Meanwhile, check this out. Schweitzer's research has been hijacked. Woo! Hijacked by young Earth creationists who insist that dinosaur soft tissue couldn't possibly survive for millions of years. Oh, we just hijacked the data. No, it's looking at the data and saying, it doesn't make sense. How can it be 68 million years old and still be soft and flexible and pliable? Can't. Now, this is, Schweitzer claims she's a Christian, and here's what she says. She says this, and I don't know, maybe she is a Christian. I'm just saying that she confesses to be a Christian. Here's what she says. They twist your words and manipulate your data. For her, science and religion represent two different ways of looking at the world. Invoking the hand of God to explain natural phenomenon breaks the rules of science. After all, she says, what God asks is faith, not evidence. God asks you for your faith. He doesn't give you any evidence, right? That's what she says. If you have all this evidence and proof positive that God exists, you don't need faith. Then she goes on. I think the kind of, what's it say? I think he kind of designed it so we'd never be able to prove his existence. And I think that's really cool. That's what she says. I think he made it so we couldn't prove his existence. Really? Have you opened your eyes and taken a look around at stuff outside? There is a God. If you can't see that there is a God, then you're blind. And you are blind. She is blinded. She can't see it, guys. We need to pray for those people because they honestly, truly can't see it. But we don't need them telling our kids that God doesn't exist. Okay? Psalms 19, 1 through 4 says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. You know there's a God. Everyone knows there's a God. Even Mary down deep knows there's a God and knows that God created this stuff. And you suppress the truth, and you store up wrath for the day of wrath. Okay. I'm going to read another quote real quick. Mary says this, by definition, there is a lot of, I'm not twisting her words. See, she said people twist her words. I'm reading word for word out of this. By definition, there's a lot of scientists don't know because the whole point of science is to explore the unknown. By being clear that scientists haven't explained everything, Schweitzer leaves room for other explanations. I think that we're always wise to leave certain doors open. Certain doors? What doors? The fact that she goes on to try to prove that these bones are 68 million years old and they're still soft, but yet she rejects anything to deal with it, anything to deal with creation, because there's all this stuff out there to dealing with creation, dealing with evolution, and it just goes against everything she's ever learned. There's a scientist, get this, guys. There's a scientist, they asked him, I can get his name for you later, but his students asked him, sir, have you considered this, and this? And we'll talk about him in a minute. And he never considered it. So he started looking into it, trying to prove his students wrong. He had some students that were pretty smart. And guess what? It took this guy 5 years to acknowledge to himself that creation existed. But he knew it the whole time. And he kept finding things that rebut evolution. But yet, it took him 5 years to grab on to creation and embrace it, that God created things. I think we do the same when it comes to the sovereignty of God. It took me 5 years at least I started seeing this. You know, you hear about all this way things are taught today, how we're above God and we have this and we drive this and we drive that, and then God's kind of sidelined. It took me a while to swallow that God is sovereign. And just as it takes these people a while to swallow that God created all things. You see, the number of the atoms in the universe. Go to the next slide, Sean. Check out this number, okay? Now, they're talking about how a protein develops. This is a small little protein. And in the text, the mathematicians believe that it's 1 in 10 and 300 in that little you remember that 300 zeros after 10? That's what they believe it takes for a protein to actually, the chances of it coming together. But 1 in 10 with the 50 zeros, they believe anything past that is completely impossible. Don't even give it a second thought, because it would never happen. Okay? I could go into more of these numbers, but I don't. I've got some other things I want to show you. But look at these zeros where it turns red to black. That's the number of the atoms in the entire universe, what they believe. So the zeros down to where it turns black, the number of the atoms in the universe. The rest of the black zeros, the chances that a protein will evolve. Isn't that crazy? The chances are astronomically, scientifically, mathematically impossible that life's going to create itself. Life cannot create itself. If I'm laying dead on a slab, I can't bring myself back to life. My body has all the ingredients to produce life, right? But it's still laying dead on a slab. I can't bring it back. So scientists have tried to create their own life. Go to the next slide. They give you this picture. This is in the textbooks. And they say they created life. Well, they didn't. They created goo. And the goo is actually toxic. And they created like a little small piece of a protein. A little small piece. They put like two pieces together out of many. And they still didn't have a formed protein. But the goo that it created in it was toxic. And you know all this proves is that it takes someone to create it, because it was scientists in a laboratory. If they ever do create life, it'll mean that there was a creator. That's all they're going to prove. So go ahead, next slide, Sean. So I got this idea. Why don't we take some worms? Because you need the substance that life is made out of, right? So if we take some worms and we put them in Mama's blender, yeah, get worm soup, right? And all we need to do is add some electricity to it, and we'll end up with their youth. Right? Does that make sense, or is that stupid? I think we could get some youth if we get to our laboratory. And we could probably improve on them a little bit, right? I'm going to give them this attribute and take away that attribute of disobeying and blah, blah, blah. So this is ridiculous, guys. We can't do this. Next slide, Sean. Oh, this is a good one. If you look at a giraffe, okay, who's heard about strokes? People having strokes, right? You know what happens is these blood vessels in your neck normally, they get constricted from all the stuff I eat on a regular basis, and it constricts them. And then it causes there to be high blood pressure up here. And when the blood pressure gets high in the brain, these blood vessels burst, causing blood to occur on the brain. This guy, look how long his neck is. His heart is like 2.5 feet big to pump blood all the way up to his head. He's got special blood vessels that take that blood up there. So he's got this tremendous blood flow going up in the air, right? What happens when he bends over? Boom, there goes his brain, right? No. What happens is he has special check valves that bring the blood back. And he has this counter pressure system in the brain that actually prevents the brain from becoming so pressurized that it explodes when he bends over to take a drink. How in the world could that happen? They say, the giraffes just kept reaching higher and higher. I bet you if we pull Serena and keep stretching her. Right? Well, no. Okay. Hey, Sean. Oh, there we go. All right. So that's the giraffe. So you got to look around. What about this one? Next slide, Sean. We got this beetle here. Get this. You see that beetle shooting that finger? It's called a bombardier beetle. It actually makes an explosion in its back end, and it's got little twin tail turrets. It can shoot at other bugs. 212 degrees explosion comes out the back. I watched videos on this thing. A little spider will be walking up next to it, and boom, he's flown all the way across the room. Can't even get close to this thing. It has inside of it different chambers that makes these chemicals. What would happen during evolution if these chambers didn't evolve at the exact same time? You would have an exploded bug. Okay? Because if these chemicals touch, boom, the bug is gone. How many boom bugs gone dead does it take to evolve this thing? How can you possibly evolve into something that when it combines, it creates an explosion? If you get time, watch a video on this thing. Okay, next slide, Sean. Mount Rushmore. Okay, we all know this was caused by erosion, wind, and rain, right? Everybody can agree that Mount Rushmore was, over hundreds of years, was eroded. Now, come on, we know that somebody chiseled that, right? Okay, so everybody in here can realize, now this is the best one you guys could use for your teachers and for anybody out there. I like this one, because it's real easy. We know that was made, right? If George Washington was standing right here and I could touch his face, what am I supposed to do? Say he evolved? The actual George Washington? But yet I can look at a rock, a picture of George Washington, and realize that was chiseled. But George Washington's standing right here, and I'm too dumb to realize that he was made. How much more complex is George Washington than that rock formation right there? You see, that doesn't make sense. What has happened to us? Okay, here's something else. Symbiotic relationships. What the evolutionists have to understand is every single thing has to evolve at the exact same time. Everything. So we're not just now talking about the number of zeros at the end of the one to create a single protein. We're talking about everything. Every single thing has to evolve at the exact same time. If I don't have the heart the size of my heart as a human, if I don't have certain things in my body the way they are as a human, I can't live. So when I was coming up out of the goo, everything had to evolve at the exact same time. Not just for humans, even for nature. Look at next slide, Sean. See these ants? This is what's called a symbiotic relationship. This tree, the acacia tree, which you'll see in the Bible, there's many different versions of it. But in the Bible, this is the tree they made the Ark of the Covenant out of. Beautiful wood. Beautiful wood. So anyways, this is a form of that tree, I believe in South America. These ants and that tree are codependent. The tree makes a enzyme that these ants eat. And the ants attack anything that eats the tree. So if you take away the ants, the tree dies. Take away the tree, obviously the ants die. They will not eat anything but this enzyme produced by this tree. They're codependent. How in the world could an ant and a tree evolve at the exact same time? Can't happen, guys. Next slide, Sean. Oh, we'll get to this in a minute. Now, what about bees and flowers? Bees and flowers. You can't have flowers without bees. You can't have flowers without birds that pollinate the flowers, different things like that, you see. So this stuff can't happen at the exact same time. So let me tell you something. I can't go through all the examples today, but there was this guy, Haeckel. Back in the 1800s, he drew these drawings of embryos, and you might not be able to see it, but notice the first column here to the left. All those embryos look identical. They look pretty much identical. What Haeckel's deal was, he was trying to say, was that at the very inception of life, whether it be a human or a fish or a bird or whatever it is, the embryos look identical, and in the womb, they evolve into a person or a fish or a life. Now, I've never seen a woman give birth to a fish. Looking at my children. Anyways, he faked this drawing. They don't look like that. He faked it. And it's still in our textbooks today. They actually took him to trial. In 1887, I believe it was. If I'm wrong on the year, correct me. But it was a long time ago. They took this guy to trial at the college and says, you faked your drawing. Guess what? That drawing is still in your kids' textbooks today. They don't look alike. The embryos don't look alike. Next slide. Now, what's also in your kids' textbooks today is that they'll say these embryos, the faked ones, and even the other ones that are actual real pictures of embryos, they say these little slits here on a human baby is gill slits. They say that a baby has gills in the womb. It's a lie. A baby doesn't have gills. Those little slits develop into other things like ears, okay? They don't have gills. The people that are telling your kids, and I tell you what, I'll bet you this is in our science books. They don't have gill slits. They don't evolve in the womb. There's a baby in the womb. It's not it or a thing, and that's where we get abortion from. It's not really a baby. It's just an embryo. Why do you think Hitler killed thousands of people? He wanted to create the perfect race. Or thousands, millions. He wanted to create the perfect race. Or was it hundreds of thousands? I don't know. I'm off on the number. But anyways, Hitler wanted to create the Aryan race. He wanted to weed out all the junk, he called it, and go forward with the race. Hey, you think about it, man. If we get rid of all the bad people, all the people that have disabilities and people that are from a sub-human race, we could cut down our health care cost. Think of it, guys. We could cut down our health care cost. Or maybe these people are too old to invest money in for health care. Or maybe we got a baby in the womb that has some kind of possible disease or possible deal that's going to cause the state to have to spend money to take care of a child. Maybe we should just get rid of it now and save that child some suffering and pain. You'll see that, and you see it today. These textbooks are not telling the truth. They don't tell the full picture. Babies do not have gill slits. It's a lie. But yet it's in there. See, you have to believe that everything evolved at the exact same time. And they're teaching this theory as fact. I'm telling you, if you read the paragraphs, it may say theory of evolution, but the rest of the page and the rest of the paragraph and the rest of the chapter reads as a fact. These trees of life they put into the textbook that show us at the end and all this stuff that happened in between, they don't have all the in between, okay? They don't have it. They don't have it. It's just assumed that we evolved this way and dogs evolved this way. Yeah, there's different kinds of dogs, but a dog doesn't turn into a chicken. Okay? You can't have that. Matter of fact, they say that when things change, when you do have mutations, it's a loss of information, not a gain of information. So if you have a mutation, that means it's something lost its information. We hear about bacteria mutating today. What happens is bacteria loses some of its information. And it becomes a different form. It's where the antibiotics can't attach to it. They're used to attaching in a certain spot, but that spot is not there anymore because they lost that type of information. Anyways, get this. Next slide, Sean. It's a chart. We're almost done, but I knew this was going to take a little bit longer. But, man, we're talking a ton of stuff. I'm telling you, this 30 to 40-minute deal, I'm not going to explain everything to you today, but I just want to get some of this stuff out there. Now, look at this. The youth here doesn't belong on this slide, but I didn't want to make a new slide just for the youth. Okay? So, get this. Among leading scientists in the field of evolution, 87% deny the existence of God, 88% disbelieve life after death, and 90% reject that evolution is directed towards an ultimate purpose. These are the opposite. Instead of having bars going way out like this, I just did the opposite. 10% don't believe in an ultimate purpose, 12% life after death, and 13% don't believe in God. Or 13% believe in God, I should say. So the opposite. Now, what's that 1% for the youth? 1% for the youth is the number of youth polled that said their church talked to them about science before they went to college. 1%. See, a lot of times when the youth get to college, I mean, if you got 10 college professors telling them it's one thing, and dumb old dad's not a college professor, and he's saying that, hey, there's this science that proves these guys wrong, who are they going to believe? Hopefully dad. But when you got 10 college professors telling them that dad is wrong, you've got to combat that with something. There's videos, there's all kinds of stuff online that these kids can watch. Okay, so if we need something for them. Okay, get this. Next weekend. Here's another reason why I'm talking about this today. Next weekend, 10,000 pastors are going to celebrate the birth of Darwin. Yeah. Next weekend is Darwin's birthday, and there are 10,000 pastors out there celebrating the birth of Darwin. You could go on this website. I'll give it to you later. They give you actual outlines to prepare your sermons. They'll give you the outlines to prepare your sermons. You talk about people being in bed with the devil. Okay? There's a list online, not that anybody's going to go to their churches, but there's a list of Oklahoma churches celebrating this next weekend. I encourage you to go out there and not go to their service. Oh, man. It says here, here's a quote. Well, these are the guys that signed this letter, these 10,000 pastors. Here's a quote out of it. It says, while virtually all Christians take the Bible seriously and hold it to be authoritative in matters of faith and practice, the overwhelming majority do not read the Bible literally as they would a science textbook. We read the Bible a little bit different than we do a science textbook. However, when God says God created, I believe that. Okay? Call me a dumb hick. Call me not scientific. When it says God created, I believe it. Now I'm looking for answers why. How I can believe that. And believe it or not, science proves it. Or it doesn't disprove it, and sound reasoning proves it. Here's the thing, guys. Science is never going against the Bible. When it says Jesus walked on the water, I believe that Jesus walked on the water. So, here we got Jesse Kilgore who committed suicide. One person. I'm telling you, the numbers are bigger than that. Not just suicide. The number of youths that walk away from the faith because they get bombarded with the world. Besides, they're in college. They want to have fun. They want to have a good time. They don't need God telling them what to do and what not to do. So this path is easy. So we can go after this path because, we just say there's no God. Here's the thing. I'm done. I got 2 verses to read to you, or 2 sections. I want to tell you why this is so important. The end of this book, the end of the Bible, Revelations, chapter 4, verse 10 and 11 says this. The 24 elders fall down before him, who is seated on a throne, and worship him, and who lives forever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying, worthy are you, our God, and God, to receive glory and honor and power. Why? For you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created. That's the end. That's what happens. I'm going to read another part right before the judgment. Look what it says here. Revelation 10, 5 and 6 says this. And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heaven and what is in it, the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, and there would be no more delay. There's no more delay. This angel is proclaiming that Christ, that God created all things right before the end. Why? Because the entire world is saying the opposite. That's why he's saying that. He's standing up proclaiming to the world, you fools, this is the truth, and I'm coming now. Do not let yourselves or your kids get caught up into this. Now, next week we're going to talk about submitting to government, but that doesn't mean that we submit our minds to the false things that are out there. We'll deal with that next week. But this week, what I want you to do is, man, take a look at some of these things that they're trying to teach our kids. There's so much stuff out there that's presented as truth, and it's not. It's in the book as truth, but it's not. They're lying to them. And I don't think they even know they're lying, because here's the thing. If you're going down this road of truth, right, everybody kind of starts out at the same place. And then people make turns, and they go off in these directions like the Big Bang or like evolution and all this stuff. And they're over here trying to figure out the truth, whereas the truth is all the way over here. It's in a different direction. And the 10% of the Christian scientists that understand the truth are looking in the right area for the truth, but these guys are spinning the wheels over here. The stuff doesn't add up. All of a sudden, Mary Schweitzer comes up with something that changes science. The way we thought about science for 300 years changed in a moment. What makes them think they're right today? They don't examine the truth. Anyways, the end is coming. And the angel's going to say, God created all things. Here I come. So, I'll let you guys sing.